It is my great honor, thrill, and pleasure to introduce to you on the 13 Dagger Sports Hotline. That's right, 13 Daggers located in Clarksville, Tennessee at the Fort Campbell Army Post. We are proud to have in our studio, let's welcome former Major League Baseball third baseman and actually former Brigham Young baseball head coach as well. Let's welcome in Vance Law. Vance, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm very good. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you so very, very much for joining us today. I really do appreciate it. It's so great, Vance, to actually say to you, baseball is back.
I completely agree. I'm really happy that they finally came to an agreement and hoping that it's a fair deal for both sides. And I'm glad that we're back in spring training and ready to go.
You know, Vance, March 1982, you traded to the Chicago White Sox. I believe that was the first time in your career that you were ever traded from one team to another team. What was it like, first of all, for the first time in your career to be traded?
Well, for me, the first time was devastating because I had grown up a Pittsburgh Pirate fan. My father had played for the Pirates for his entire career. I hoped to make a long career there in Pittsburgh, and to be called into the office by manager Chuck Tanner, and I go in there and the general manager is there and a couple of the coaches, and I actually thought that I was going to be sent down for about the fourth time because that was the kind of thing that always seemed to happen. And instead, they said, we've decided to trade you to the Chicago White Sox. We need pitching, and they needed an infielder. So that's why you're going to Chicago. And so I left that clubhouse pretty much in tears. It was devastating to me because like I say, I wanted to be a Pittsburgh Pirate, but it turned out to be the turning point of my entire career. I had the opportunity now to work with the great hitting coach, Charlie Lau, who turned my career around.
Yeah, I know his son really well. Let me ask you this, Vance. You know, how hard was it for you growing up? First of all, your dad was a Cy Young Award-winning pitcher. You ended up playing the infield. Was there ever a time in your career where you wanted to pitch like your dad?
Well, I actually got 7 appearances.
You did. I know that. And, hey, 3.83 ERA, buddy. I mean, that's more respectable than guys today.
Yeah, well, they were all mop-up games, so I'm not sure how intense how intent the hitters were that I was facing, but it was fun to get on the mound. But no, in reality, I never thought about wanting to be a pitcher. I wanted to be out there on a daily basis and be a regular infielder / outfielder wherever I needed to be, wherever they needed me to play.
We are talking to Vance Law, former MLB third baseman. Vance, 1984, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you get this power surge. It's like, you got hit by lightning or something, and boom, you hit 17 home runs. Talk about that year, and what was it that all of a sudden the power side of you came out?
Well, the thing that I know really helped me was starting to really understand the principles that Charlie taught. And that was weight shift into the baseball. I was always a back foot pivot on the backside type hitter, and you just don't get the full momentum of your body weight going into the baseball. Greg Luzinski and Jimmy Leland, our third base coach, they pulled me aside one time and said, look, you're 6'2", 195 pounds. You shouldn't be hitting 3 or 4 home runs during the course of the season. There's no reason in the world you can't hit 15 to 20. So start looking for pitches and looking for opportunities to drive the baseball into the gaps and, get pitches that are elevated that you might be able to hit out of the ballpark. And that really changed my perspective at the plate. Instead of trying to, I was always taught to hit the ball up the middle the other way. And instead, these guys talked to me and said, listen, you can hit the ball out of the ballpark. We've seen it. We just need you to start looking to drive the baseball more. And it was really a change of mindset more than anything physical.
Vance, how weird or how crazy is it when you turn on a TV today and you watch the Chicago White Sox play, which is one of the teams you did play for, and you see the same darn manager managing today that was managing you back then?
It's really different. He doesn't run as well as he did when he goes out to argue with an umpire. But Tony's mind is still sharp. He really is one of the first managers that ever started playing the right on right, left on left, bullpen game. And some people blame him for having 3.5, 4 hour games now because they change pitchers so often. But that he was already into those kinds of stats that a lot of the analytics are now using. And so Tony was well before his time in terms of understanding how he was going to manipulate the game, the way he wanted it to play, and who was going to face who throughout the lineup.
What was he like to play for?
A very good communicator. He was demanding. He was fair. He let you know where you stood. And he established roles for every player on the team so that you pretty well knew. And he was very, very good at maintaining those roles. If he told you were going to be a late inning guy coming off the bench to hit for somebody in the 7, 8, and 9 slot, if it came down to crunch time and that situation came up, he would put that guy in. And so you knew where you stood. I knew that I was going to be playing. I knew I would be playing center field against certain left-handed pitchers. Against right-handers, I was going to be playing third base. But he didn't feel that our left-handed hitting center fielder at the time was very successful that first year hitting against left-handed pitching. And so he said, you're going to play some center field against left-handers. And he was true to his word. Other guys like Mike Squires, one of the best fielding first basemen ever, we knew that he was going to be playing defense if we had the lead in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning because he could save runs. And he stayed true to his word. So it was that kind of communication that he had with his players, with the entire team. Some guys didn't buy into it as well that first year, but my second year, the winning ugly year, boy, I'll tell you what, we pulled it together and everybody bought in, and it was a fabulous season.
Yes, it was. 1987, the year before you were playing for the Expos. They didn't renew your contract. For all the listeners that are listening to this show tonight, explain to them the mental and emotional side, especially going through free agency for the first time in your career.
Well, that's a rough one because I was coming off a decent year in 1987 with the Expos, and I had some off the field issues. I had a daughter with a brain tumor in 1986. I credit that for kind of having a down season in 86, but I played well in 85 and 87, and I had 2 option years in 88 and 89. If people will recall, and I know it was a long time ago, but if you'll recall, Andre Dawson the previous year left Montreal because they offered him an absurd contract that was not close to his playing abilities. He said, I'm not signing here because I know that I can get better in the free market. Well, we tested the market, and there was nothing there. Nobody would offer anymore. So he just signed a blank contract with the Chicago Cubs, and I think he played for $500 or something like that there, when the going rate for somebody of his caliber was $1.5 million, $2 million, somewhere in there. The same thing kind of happened to me. I became a free agent once they said that they weren't going to renew my option or my contract. And I said, and then they offered me a 40% cut on top of what I made the previous year after having a good year. And I said, you're not going to do that to me, and me stick around. I'm not going to accept it. They said, go ahead and try free agency. So I did. And wouldn't you know, the same thing happened. I wasn't offered anything more than what they offered me to come back to Montreal. And I was true to my word. I told them I wasn't coming back. I don't care if I go and play for less somewhere else. And I went to Chicago for the Cubs and played for the Cubs in 88 and 89 for the same amount that Montreal offered me. And I know that Andre, myself, Tim Raines, other guys in Montreal were held to those collusion problems, and we were kind of the examples that the Players Association used in order to prove collusion by the owners, meaning that they were all colluding to really knock down free agency and free agency signings. So that's how it went.
Yep,
and I tell you, it was really disappointing because I felt like we were having a good team in Montreal. We had a chance to win. We were competitive, and to feel like they just kind of shunned, the three of us was really pretty rough.
Yeah, I can imagine. And, you kind of took it out on the field the next year because you ended up having your best season in Chicago at 393 average, 163 hits, 70 RBIs, and I believe, if I'm correct, that year you were named to the All-Star team as well. So talk about that year and what seemed to click together for you to have that type of year.
Well, that was a crazy year because I started spring training. I went to Arizona, in Mesa, Arizona, for the Cubs spring training, and I really was trying to prove that I belonged. You really want your teammates to like you and think, hey, this was a good deal. We got him. They had gotten rid of a real good player in Moreland, Keith Moreland, and I was going to be filling in there at third base. I was going to be the third baseman. I got off to a terrible spring training start. And after about an 0 for 30, Don Zimmer called me into his office and said, well, you just relax. We know you can play. And I don't care if you go 0 for the rest of spring training. You're going to be opening day third baseman. So just relax and play. And from then on, it just turned all the way around. I started driving the ball, started knocking in runs, 2-out RBI. And I got off to a great start during the season, I think with a 17 or 18 game hitting streak, which just increased your confidence. And as a player, success breeds confidence, and confidence breeds more success. And that's the way I looked at it. And I don't believe I had more than a 3 or 4 game offer the entire season. I played, close to 160 games during that season and had 163 hits, like you said. And by the sports writers, I was actually named the most valuable Cub that year, which was a great honor because we had 6 guys that year make the All-Star team. And, to me, that was a real honor to be considered that in 1988. And also to make an All-Star team. That was to go there with 5 of my teammates, with Andre, with Sandberg, with Maddox, Rafael Palmeiro, and Sean Dunston. That was a really fun season.
You know what's weird about that team, when you look back at it, Vance, is you look at all that talent on that team, yet you didn't have, as a team, a very successful year, did you?
No, we didn't. It wasn't nearly as good as the following year in 1989. We had a real good team, and I think a lot of it was we had a young pitching staff. We had a couple of veterans in Scott Sanderson and Rick Sutcliffe, and they were the mainstays. Maddox was just coming into his own, but he was still, 23 or 24. But you could tell he was going to be something special. And but our bullpen was very young. A lot of guys that had just come up. They were rookies coming out of AAA, and so I think our pitching staff matured in '89. Whereas we lost some games because of our youth on the pitching staff. I believe that first year, but boy, they sure showed up the next year. And guys like Jeff Pico and Mike Bilecki really pitched well for us. Those kind of guys really, really were good players for us.
Now, you played for some great coaches. You said Zimmer, you talked about Tanner, we talked about LaRussa. And later on, after your baseball career, I know you became head coach of BYU. I know you were there for a while as their head coach. Did any of the coaches that you played with influence you to become a coach?
Well, that wasn't my that wasn't my intention when I retired from baseball. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I wanted to be home because we have 5 children, and my wife had done the majority of rearing those children while I was playing. Although we tried very hard to stay together during the season, wherever I played, the family would come there as well. But I felt like I wanted to just kind of be at home, and coaching. I was getting kind of bored after the first 6 months, and I actually tried to hook up again to play one more year, see if somebody would give me an opportunity, but that didn't go well, and so I pretty much retired and was invited to help out with a junior college, and that's where I started. Then I did that for 2 seasons. Then I went to high school and coached there for 5 seasons and won a state championship. And I thought, hey, this is pretty fun. I enjoy doing this. And then I applied for the BYU job that opened up, and I got that right here in my hometown and stayed there for 13 years. But I would say all of those guys, all the managers that I played for had an impact on me. The positivity of Chuck Tanner, the communication of Tony LaRussa, the good-naturedness of Don Zimmer. And he was kind of a hunch manager, and he liked to do things a little bit off kilter. I mean, one time he had me hit and run with the bases loaded in Shea Stadium. And so I didn't quite go that far, but I liked to do the hit and run. I had a couple of guys that were capable of doing those things, so I liked to play the game that way. Buck Rogers was always a positive influence also, and I thought that he managed his pitching staff well. So I tried to take something from each one of those managers, which I believe helped me have some success as a coach. And hopefully the players that played for me learned how to play the game the right way.
We're talking to Vance Law, former MLB third baseman. Vance, as a former infielder, I have to ask you this question because one of the biggest topics that they discuss nowadays in Major League Baseball is the shift, whether they should keep allowing it or whether they should go back to the way the game was meant to be with 2 infielders on one side and 2 on the other. What's your perspective on the shift, and do you think it should stay or do you think it should go away?
Well, I always fault the hitters for causing this problem because if hitters could hit the ball the other way, we wouldn't have this issue right now. But so many I know are getting paid to hit the ball out of the ballpark, and so with two outs, what's the purpose of power left-hander shooting the ball the other way? Just to get on first base. His job to hit a home run and score a run. So. It's really the player's fault that it's gotten to the position where everybody started to shift. But as for me, I feel like you can always shift to a point, but I like to see at least 2 guys on both sides of the infield. And I won't be surprised if it turns out that at some point in the very near future, they try to limit how much you can shift. That maybe you got to start the shortstop at least on the third base side. Or for a left-handed hitter, or a right-handed, you got to start that second baseman on the first base side of second base. So that's my feeling. I just and as I was a coordinator for the White Sox in their player development system, I would go around and watch, and I'd see a line drive hit up the middle. I'm going, yes, one of our guys hit it. And yes, we're gonna. And I look up, and the shortstop's standing right there. And, it just doesn't, it seems like it doesn't reward a solid at bat for some players too. So I'm in favor of, modifying the rules so that they just can't put 8 guys or 7 guys on the right side of the infield for a left-handed hitter.
Vance, I like the style that you talk about. I grew up in an era where small ball bunting, hitting and running, stealing bases, and doing those small things to manufacture runs is the way baseball was played. Do you think that we could possibly get back to that game if they do take the shift, and like you said, and implement it back like the old way, two sides on, two infielders on each side of second base?
I wish I could tell you yes on that, Larry, but I think that the game has changed so far now with the analytics and the percentage people that are now hired and really run the show in most organizations. I wish that I could say it'll go back the other way, but they've got all their numbers that match up and say, the percentages of bunting a guy over first and second, nobody out, and scoring a couple of those guys are less. The percentages are less than letting everybody swing away, which is hard for me to believe because if I'm managing and I got a chance to bunt a guy from first and second late in the ball game and get second and third with one out, I'd much rather have that than first and second and one out where somebody hits into a double play and we don't score anybody. A sac fly at least is going to score us a run. And I like to take my chances with at least getting one run out of an inning. And if a guy gets a base hit, we score two. But the percentages show that that's not what happened over 162. Now we had a man when I was in the Cleveland Indians organization. We have a manager, Tito Francona, who still will on occasion go against that. And he's got reasons though. He has a reason. If you have a reason as a manager, you have the ability to talk to upper management, say, this is when I'm going to do it. And you got to have the right hitter at the plate that you've got confidence that can bunt the guy over, that he's not going to mess up an at bat. And you got guys that can run the bases. So he's not afraid to do some of those old school type plays. And I'm glad that there's a couple of guys that are still out there that play the game the way I think it should be played.
Few more questions, we'll let you run, Vance. Back in the day when you played, and unless I'm wrong, but I always remember the lineups being pretty consistent from one day to another, maybe with a small change here or there, but you never seen backup players, I think, playing as much as you do today, unless a player was getting a day off. I mean, explain to me, and especially you being a coach as well, how do hitters and players get in a rhythm if you're shuffling the lineup every single day? I think the Rays last year used, over 100 different lineups in a 162-game season. I mean, doesn't that, from a player's perspective, isn't it odd to get in a rhythm when you keep getting days off in between?
It's a real mindset. I would not have handled that very well, I don't believe, because I felt like if I wasn't in the lineup, I was tipped. I was tipped the rest of the evening because I wanted to be in the lineup. That's how I kept my rhythm. I felt like I kept my rhythm. But I think so many of today's players have grown up and come up through the minor league system with the idea that lineups are going to change day to day. And I think they have the mindset that I'm ready to go when I'm called on. And it wasn't until later in my career where maybe I wasn't playing every day, but I was playing the majority of the time, that I could take a day off and understand what the manager was trying to do. But a platoon situation, I still feel like the right hitter has the ability to hit a right-handed pitcher. And I just because that's who we faced our entire lives. Our entire lives we faced right-handers. It's not like this is something new. It was almost more difficult to face a left-hander as a right-hander hitter because we're not used to having the ball curve into us. We're always used to that slider going away. But I think it's a mental mindset now that the players have that I may not be in the lineup every day. Now, there are organizations that still throw out that same lineup as much as possible. And I know playing for Tony, he will try to keep every player sharp. So once in a while, he'll come up to you and he'll say, "Hey, tomorrow night you're not going to be playing. I need to keep everybody sharp. I'm going to let somebody else come in and play that position tomorrow. Give him 4 at bats. Try to keep him sharp." And then you'd go to that guy and you'd say, hey, you're playing tomorrow, be ready to go. And that communication, I think, really helped me be able to handle, being sat down for a day or two. Those things, but nothing is like playing out there every day where you can get that rhythm. You know who the pitchers are. You've faced them most of the time before, and and even if you were 0 for 4 the last time you faced them, that didn't the computer didn't grab me and sit me on the bench like it does now. If you go for 4 against a guy and the next time you play him in another series, that 0 for 4 pops up, and that manager is instructed a lot of times that guy's going to sit.
We got time for one more question, Vance. If you have to look back at your playing career and there's one moment that sticks out to you that is fonder than any other moment, what would that be?
Just relationships. The relationships, the excitement of going to the baseball field, the smell of the grass, the popcorn, the fans cheering, just the atmosphere. You can't find that anywhere in real life. I mean, I was living a fantasy. I was living my childhood dream, and that's the thing that stands out more than anything. And I just think that it's if I had to talk about a certain play or an event that happened, being named to the All-Star team was really a thrill. That was something that people. I had a number of scouts say I would be at best I'd be a second tier player on a second tier team. And so to make an All-Star team, to be on a couple of championship teams as far as winning divisions, we never won a World Series, but we were darn close a couple of times. To be able to kind of put it back in their face and say, yeah, just give me a chance. Give guys a chance. And that's one thing that I don't care about the draft too much anymore. There's guys like me who's drafted in the 39th round. They'll never get that opportunity to show. You just don't. After 10 rounds, you pretty well shut it down now. So it's kind of tough to see that, because I think there's a lot of good players that do get overlooked. And, there's guys that can still play that don't get drafted. And I was one of those guys that, even though I got drafted, it was down where hockey players get drafted. So it was a fun time, a fun career, but the relationships are lifelong.
Well, Vance, I got to tell you something. I enjoyed watching your career. I remember you very well, obviously. So, I want to thank you for allowing me that time when I was growing up to enjoy watching baseball because of someone like you that played the game. Also want to thank you so very, very much taking time out of your schedule to join us on Frankly Speaking Sports this evening.
Thanks so much, Larry. I appreciate the opportunity. And again, I'd like to tell the fans thanks for the support over all the years. It's I hope this lockout hasn't soured too many people, that they'll get back to watching baseball and really enjoy what I think is still the greatest game on earth.
All right, my friends, stay safe.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Vance Law, former MLB third baseman. He also was former